Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today we're going to set this Ksuvas Daf Pei Beis. We are going to begin on Pei Beis Amud Aleph, about 8 lines from the top by the 2 dots. Hahu Gavra. So there was an individual, the Nafale Yavama B'Masa Machasya, that there was a situation where Yavama was in the picture, and this was in the city of Machasya, and as we know, as we mentioned, the brother that decides to do Yibum, so the din is that he's the one who will be Yorish everything from his deceased brother. Now, Bo'achua L'misl Begitamine, as we mentioned in the previous daf, as well as numerous times in Yavamos, that if one of the brothers does give a get, in which is, of course, not what's supposed to be done, typically it's chalitza, but even a get will passel the other brothers from being able to now do Yibum. Now, why would he have that motivation? Is because if all the brothers would decide not to do Yibum, then Chalitza would be done, and ultimately they would divide the estate equally. So the brother who sees his, let's say, older brother about to do Yibum may want to step up and give a get, and this will cause, obviously not very nice, that his brother won't be able to do Yibum, but also he's doing it for the motivation of being able to get this money. So because of this, the brother wants to do Yibum, says the following. What do you think? What we'll do is, I'll do Yibum with her, but I will tell you right now that we're still going to divide up the estate completely. So Amrulay, so he said back to him, Mistapina divatali keda avid pomadisa, Ramah. I'm concerned that you're going to end up doing the exact same thing that was done by those Ramoyim, those people who are tricksters in Pumadisa. Says Rashi, Shachrachin Chazer Bo Pumadisa, Karlu Ramah. So they're considered to be Ramoyim. That's the term, and it brings different sources where we find in Shas that this is why Pumadisa, the people from there, have engaged in trickery. So Ermele boys Polglach Bahashd. So if you're really concerned, let's divide it up right now. Says Rashi, Haksek Bechelcha, you can hold on to your portion, Miakshav, Biavabi She'enu Akshav Kanuilucha, Ad Shechanis. Even though the truth is, I'm not marrying her yet, I didn't do Yibum yet, which is when I would actually really get everything, but nonetheless, let's say it works right now. Grab your portion right now. So the question is, does that work? So Omer Mar Ravashi Afrika the Chiyasa Rabdimi Rav Yochanan Rav Chaver, a person says, a seemingly unrelated case, we're going to see the connection. A person says to his friend, Leich Mashaych Parazu, that I want you to go and do Mashicha, which is the typical kinyan for Metaltlin, for this cow. However, I don't want you to actually acquire until after the 30 days. Now, let's say that was the statement. And then, we find after the 30 days, kana, that's considered to be a kinyan. Now, here's the catch. Even if this para is in the agam, literally in the swamp, which means, as Rashi says, it's not in the domain of the buyer. So how could he actually be kainit if it's not in his chutzner, it's not in his property? So what do we see? We see that it still works, that you can make the stipulation, and therefore it should also work in this case by Yibum. Mara says no. Hasam biyadai hachala biyadai. Over there, when it comes to the kinyan after 30 days, it's biyado. Says Rashi, Mishumdi biyado haya lach naisula mishas mashicha. He was actually, at the time that he did the Mashiach, he could have technically been kainit, which is the typical way. Hilkach mehani Mashiach. Therefore, the Mashiach helps. So for that initial kinyan, which we're not going to say is a kinyan because he didn't actually own it yet, but it will help so that after 30 days, even if it's in an agam, will go back to its original place because it was biyado to be kainit at that time. However, hachala biyado, when we're dealing with this situation of dividing this property evenly with his brother, he has no authority to be able to do it because he only has the rights to maybe give away or to be mafker some of his nechasim only once he actually is the owner. Right now, until he's actually done Yibum, he doesn't have that ability. He says that it actually isn't a kinyan. So kasha had yamli kani mi'achshav hadol emer le kani mi'achshav. So you also have to say mi'achshav. Question 13 as well as TB7. B'ma uve'eza oifin moyel lasus kinyan hayoim. When can you make a kinyan today? It'll work after 30 days. So again, it has to be whatever should be yadai. It has something that you potentially could acquire today. And also you have to say kinimi achshav. You also have to say the word from that. What is the din if a person did yibum and then afterwards he divided it up? So lo asavol klum. In that situation, he didn't do anything. So what does that mean? Because he was already kind of it. So therefore, since it's already his, to divide it afterwards is like nothing. So he said the same thing. If he divides it, and then afterwards is yibum, also it's nothing. So Maskav Rav Sheshas Hashta yibum v'yachach, even in the situation where he did yibum and then he divided it up, even though when he did yibum he does have ownership over it, it still doesn't work. So so when he did the division before he actually was kind of course it shouldn't work. Our answer is Shnei Masim Havi. There are two different stories, says Rashi. Misha shol zu lo shol zu lo sham ha'achrein esarishain shenishal yach bebeis hamedrash. So these were two different shilas that were asked, not at the same time. If they were asked, then one would have been able to decipher from the other the din. But you're right, it really isn't a chiddush. Obviously, if it doesn't work, even if you did yibum, you can't divide it afterwards. So certainly the other way around. That's the halacha. So the Mishnah says when it comes to fruits that are attached, so again the land is his. So everything is connected to the ksuba. What do you mean it belongs to him? So Amr Shlakish Tani, there's a slight little change. Shalah. It actually goes to her. Kansa Harihi Kishtai. So he said that once Yibum is done, and this is brought down numerous places, this next piece. Once Yibum is done, so this woman that he did Yibum with is now Ishtal Choldavar. It's his wife for all matters. So my hilchos. So Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chanina, Leimer, this is also question TA6. Shemigarsha beget umachzira. That even if he would divorce her, he can remarry her. Which we know is the din. If a person gets married and they divorce, as long as she didn't marry anyone in the middle, so the din is he can remarry her. So this is actually TA6. Let's read the question first. They also wants the habib. So why would you think not? So migarsha beget pshita. There's 2 points. First of all, that when you divorce her, you use a get and not any other means of removing her. And also you can remarry her. So first of all, migarsha beget pshita. Of course, when you get divorced, you're supposed to use a get. So you would think since the original connection was a yibum marriage, it's not a typical marriage, so therefore, when it came to a woman who's a shemer shavam, you could release her with chalitza, so maybe that also is the din after you actually marry her. The way you release her, if you decide to divorce, is not with a get, but rather with chalitza, kamash mulan. No. You actually give her a get. So machzir pshita. So her again, the notion of again returning, getting the ability to remarry her is also a davar pashit. As we continue to pay beis and beis, so this again is the second part of TA6. So we mark that down. TA6. So ma'adatema mitzvah rachman aleha avda. The guy already did the mitzvah. There's a mitzvah to marry your deceased brother's wife without children. Now the hashda tekem lehebi isra eshasach. However, now that you divorced her, it kicks in the original eshasach. You can't marry your brother's wife. There's an exception of yibum. However, once you already did the mitzvah of yibum and you divorce her, maybe you can't remarry her. Maybe it's true, maybe you can't. So that once you marry her, she's considered to be your wife. So the din is that the ksuba is connected to the original husband, the original brother. That is the one. So my time, because Isha, beautiful thought. Isha hiknu lo min hashamayim. This was not a woman that you were searching for. This is a woman that literally almost fell from the sky. You were not anticipating that your brother was going to die. They were going to be childless. So this marriage is literally a marriage from heaven. And therefore, because of that, it's not considered to be a regular marriage. And therefore, because of that, says Rashi, Lo yavam zeh min hashamayim, ein olav lichtov lo shtar nesuin. So it's not upon him to write this star marriage. It is true that in the event, let's say, that there is no money from the original estate, there's nothing, so then he certainly has to be able to produce something, because we have the din, that she should not be someone who could just easily be removed. And therefore, because of that, typically we go after the nichse bal rishon, the properties. But if we don't have enough money to cover the ksuba by the first man, so then the brother who's now married, who's done yibum, also has to take care of that. Okay, fine. Yovam shenichnas v'girish v'hichser ksuvasa al nichse mi, al nichse bal harishain. Okay, that was question 14. Now, lo yamula hari ksuvasech. A person, as we said, because of Ava, shouldn't say, "Oh, the money, the ksuba, your money's right there on the table." My v'chein. What does that mean? And also, ma'datema hasam hu deloy kasavla diknoi udikanina. Since by a regular wife, everything is meshubed to the ksuba. Maybe in this situation we would say that she is Saimech Das, and therefore it's not necessary that everything is meshubah to the ksuba. Says Rashi, the lo kasavla, the yavam didn't write ksuba. Ha yavam nechasim. He's not the one that was did any of this. However, even though that's the case, everything is still meshubah. Girsha ein lo el ksubasa. She gets divorced, then there is not but the ksuba. So girsha ein lo girsha lo. Kamash malan kid Rabbi Abba. What's Rabbi Abba? Says Rational El. Previously, Im Yisrael who migarsha beget umachzira. As we said before, that he can divorce his wife and then remarry her. Hechzira hari hi kachol nashim ve'ein lo el b'ksubasa. So again, if he remarries her, she's like any other woman, and she gets her ksuba. Hechzira my kamash mon tanina. The migar says the isha machzira al manas ksuba rishayna machzira. We already know that if a person gets divorced, and you divorce your wife, so it's actually totally on the original ksuba. Madatema ishtahu diihu kasav lo ksuba mine. You would think when it comes to your wife, you're the one that wrote the ksuba. You didn't write it. When you divorced her, and remarry her, you would think maybe you actually have to produce a ksuba. Kamash Malan, that again, all she gets is the original ksuba. So Rabbi Huda B'Rishaina Hayikaisin LeBesul Masayim Almana Mana. Originally, again, the Besul got 200, Almana widow got 100. Maskinin Velo Hayinoisim Nashim, and all of a sudden, people started getting older, and no one was getting married. Shimon ben Shatach v'tikin kol nechasim archoin l'ksubasa. He said that all nechasim are meshubed to the ksuba. Fine. So again, the initial issue is if all you had was this small amount of money, so perhaps that was not sufficient. And Rashi says, the women did not want to get married. Omru, they said, if he dies or Yigarish and I get divorced, I won't be able to collect anything. Because the Yarshim will hide the money. Shel Yerusha. They'll just say, "Oh, there's no money. Sorry, we have no money. We're broke." So therefore, everything is meshubed. Everything's meshubed, and therefore that was the way the Shimon Shetach actually caused that there should be marriages. That at least that they know in the back end that they'll be able to be safe. Again, originally that's all it was. V'hayu maskinin, women start getting older. V'lo hayu noisim nashim, they wouldn't get married. Hiskinu shehi manicha noisim bebeis aviha, they would leave it by the father's house. V'adayin kishu kayis aleha, but when he would get angry at her, Omer lo l'chi eitzel ksuba seich, he would say, go and collect your ksuba, like go over there. Hiskinu shehi manicha noisim bebeis chamia, so then instead it was placed by the house of her husband. Ashirus oisa kolosais. So the rich people, they made baskets shel kesef v'shel zahav, of silver and gold, and they used to put it on her head, and this is what they used to do. Aniyos hayoisanais of it shel meraglayim, and they used to put it into this this vessel, which receptacle which held urine. They would say, go and get your ksuba. So again, by him doing this, it caused that women would be able to get married, because now they felt more comfortable knowing that these monies would be easily collected, and therefore they wouldn't have as much to worry about. We were going to be continuing tomorrow's daf with the words at Kosev Ishto Dain Udinu Devroim Elim Nechoseich Sahar Zeh Oichel Paris B'Chayaha Adkan.